Update. My deceased wife's parents are trying to take my children. Original story. I was married to Kate for almost 16 years, together nearly 20. She was the absolute light of my life, at the center of my world, and her death has been devastating to both me and our 3 children, 17 female, 14 male, 10 male. Our family was very close, and her death was unexpected. We are estranged from Kate's parents. She was already no contact with them when we first met, and we continued keeping no contact with them. They attempted pretty often to get in contact with us, and Kate and I always shut it down immediately. We were in no contact with them because they were incredibly horrible to Kate growing up. They don't accept responsibility for their actions. They say they were just confused kids and didn't mean for anything serious to happen to Kate. But something serious did happen to Kate. Kate suffered from seizures from a traumatic brain injury she got at her mother's hands, and it was a seizure that killed my wife 3 weeks ago. So I rest the blame for my wife's death squarely on her parents' shoulders. Since she passed away, her parents have begun harassing me, saying that they're owed a relationship with their grandchildren. I say I don't owe them crap, and continue to deny them requests, throw away the letters, donate the gifts, just like Kate had always done. Now, I've been sent a letter that they're suing for grandparents' rights. I am terrified. I'm terrified that my in-laws are going to get their hands on my children and take them away from me in the wake of the traumatic death of their mother. Am I doing the right thing by keeping distance from her parents? I've turned everything over to the lawyer, but I'm wondering if this is the right thing to do. All 3 kids are in therapy even before their mother's death. The older 2 kids know some details of the relationship between Kate and her parents, but not the entire story. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Yes, you are doing the right thing. Also, get a lawyer. They shouldn't be able to take them actually. They may have a Hail Mary chance though. Some states have a grandparents' rights laws for visitation, sadly for situations similar to this. The laws are for, in the event of a parent's death, the surviving parent going AWOL and depriving the deceased parent's family/grandparents with access to the children. In theory, the situation is similar to Opie's case, except the deceased parent was no contact before their death, and clearly didn't want the grandparents near their family. Couldn't imagine a court granting them, but crap, if they get the right judge on the right day? I think they need to have an established relationship with the kids to qualify though. I'd only listen to what your lawyer says because you owe them nothing and their feelings aren't a concern. I doubt they would advise you to start contact. Also r/legal advice. Lawyer here. They won't be able to take rights away from him. Unless OP is lying, most, if not all states, prioritize bio-parents' rights over grandparents, even when bio-parent is in jail or substance dependent. The worst that can happen is visitation, but they have not had continuous contact with these children prior to his wife's untimely and devastating death. So, I don't know how they'll even get visitation. OP, it's clear you're in a lot of pain and stressed out, but they really don't have a leg to stand on. Stand your ground. They have no claim to these children. In most states, grandparents' rights are set up for if there is a messy relationship and one parent dies, the other parent cannot keep the children away from that side of the family, which is not what's happened from your description. Based on the history as well, even for visitation she has no case, depending on your location. She hasn't had a relationship with them ever, so there wouldn't be a loss of relationship now that your wife is deceased. But have a very serious talk with your kids about this. Older kids get more info obviously, since grandparents could reach out to them directly to manipulate their way into a relationship. And now for the update. A year ago, I came asking advice as my deceased wife's parents were trying to take custody of my 3 children. I want to thank everyone for the advice they gave us. Someone commented about an FU binder, and that came in so handy to fight against these horrific people. It was a really long 9-month battle. I got to know the CPS officers and our night shift police officers on a first-name basis. They reported me for mistreating my children, my dogs, even for breaking into my neighbor's house. In the heat of it, I gathered my kids with our family therapist and asked if they wanted to move. Our house had so many good memories, but also one big terrible memory. I don't like to think of it as running away or hiding, but as the freshest slate we could manage. We're in an entirely different state now, with no contact orders in place to protect us in the future. We miss Kate more than words could ever convey, but we're all together still, and that's the most important part. Good thing you were able to get past them. They're terrible human beings by doing all these things to you and your kids. They alienated themselves from their grandkids by what they've done to them. All the best. I often wonder how evil people exist. Like, I can't fathom sitting around lying just to lie. Do they believe this ugliness? I'm so glad you got away from these awful demons posing as people. Sending light. You would be so surprised what people will do when someone dies. Their evil sides are quickly revealed. My uncle drank himself to death, and my aunt found him. She stole the rings off his hands and all the money in his wallets before calling my dad and the cops. People can be worse when someone dies. Wow, what a horrific story. I'm a dad who ended up with a custody away from a very troubled mother, so this story resonated with me as I fought long and hard to keep custody. I've had custody for 16 years, and every challenge has been thrown out, but I always fear that one whacked-out judge on a bad day, so I can totally relate to the fear. I'm so glad to hear how this has worked out. I wish you the best. Just wanted to post a little empathetic ear. As sad as your story is, you've done the right thing. Thanks for posting, Opie. I'm glad you're now moving on. I feel terrible for contacting you, and I'm just wondering if you can provide any tips, looking back at what has helped you rebuild. Unfortunately, I have a similar story, albeit a little different. My sister is in her very late stages of her life after fighting cancer for 8 years. It has been an emotional roller coaster during this time, and whilst we knew this day was coming, it's cutting a lot harder than we first thought. To top things off, my sister's husband, my brother-in-law, could not take this pain and ended his life in January of this year. Despite what he did, and knowing my sister doesn't have long days, like your kids, she and him leave behind 3 children. So literally as I type, I write to you grieving for my sister. But I have to now prepare to take on guardianship of her 3 children too. They are twins 16 years old and a 10 years old. And by the month's end, they'll have lost both parents. My immediate family is very close. Financially, we are okay too. But I have 3 kids falling into my guardianship having going through grief that no one deserves. I'm not really sure what to do. Everything is falling into place, and I'm terribly sorry for making this about me, especially when you've already gone through hell and back. Next story. How do I start a relationship with my nieces and nephew when their father was responsible for my brother's passing? One of my employees mentioned that this may be a good place to get some advice for my current dilemma. I'm 46 male and 4 kids. My older brother Pete, 48 male I think, who I no longer have any contact with, my younger brother Jake, who is no longer with us, and my youngest sister Kathy, 44 female. Recently, Pete's children, 2 girls and 1 boy, all in their late teens and early 20s, reached out to me and expressed a desire to have a relationship. I have 0 contact with their father, and swore that I would beat him black and blue if I ever saw him again. A little background. My oldest brother Pete was always the golden child. No matter what he did, my parents always had an excuse for why it was not his fault. Bad grade? Teacher had it out for him. Cheating in every single one of his relationships. Good thing you did it to her before she did it to you. That one was my personal favorite. He also used to torment Jake and I constantly when we were smaller than him. Until in high school, when I hit a growth spurt and sprung up to about 6'4" and 230 pounds worth of muscle. After that, I became the typical jock type. Played football, partied, bunch of friends, etc. Well, my younger brother Jake didn't get as lucky, and stayed pretty small and scrawny throughout high school and college, only getting up to about 5'8", and didn't have a super active social life. Despite the difference in our schooling experience, I was always very protective of Jake, especially since we were always having to put up with Pete's crap, which stopped once he realized I could pound him into the ground and not break a sweat, as he was also a lot smaller than me at only 5'10". Not much to say about Kathy. She was a great younger sister, and Pete didn't dare mess with her or he would incur the wrath of our mother. So in the late 90s, Jake met his first real girlfriend, Amy, and was over the moon about her. He spent every spare moment with her, and when he wasn't with her, he would do nothing but gush about her. I had never seen him so happy. Well, one day he comes to us, all smiles, and announces that Amy is pregnant and they are expecting. The mood quickly turned, however, when a week later it came out that Amy had been cheating on Jake for the duration of their relationship with our older brother Pete. This broke my brother. And of course, Pete, being the golden turd that he is, didn't even get a disappointed glance from our parents. To this day, I've never seen someone look so broken as Jake had looked the last time I saw him. I believe his heartache was only compounded by the fact that my parents basically told him to get over it and be happy for our brother. Well, about a week after this revelation came to light, he ended himself. I had never been so sad and angry at the same time in my entire life. Sad that I would never see my brother again, and the pure rage of knowing that this was my brother and parents' fault. During the funeral, Pete walked in with Amy and I saw red. Thankfully, I had other family there to stop me from doing anything stupid, but I told Pete that if I ever saw him again, I would kill him. Shortly after that, I cut contact with 90% of my family, with the exception of Kathy and a cousin I had always been close with, because everyone except them wanted to make excuses for my parents and Pete. Now fast forward to present. I never had any kids, and truth be told, I never wanted any. I much prefer the role of the fun uncle. Kathy met a great guy and had 2 daughters, who I absolutely adore. Pete had 2 more kids with Amy before cheating on her. Shocker. And splitting, and I've never met any of them. My parents have tried to make contact a handful of times, but I always told them to kick rocks. So last week I'm chatting with Kathy's daughters, 19 and 17, and they mentioned that their cousins have wanted to meet me for a long time, and were hoping I would be willing to meet them as well. I don't believe they know everything that transpired between their dad and I, but I would be lying if I said I never had any desire to meet them. So everyone, I'm hoping to crowdsource any ideas/suggestions on how I begin/maintain a relationship with Pete's kids, while also keeping him and Amy out of my life. Any suggestions are welcome. Edit. One commenter just brought up a good point that kind of changes my question. The reason I wanted to meet with them soon is because they are all back in town at once from college due to COVID. But someone gave me the idea that maybe meeting them one at a time once they return to their college campuses/old living arrangements is the better option. Thoughts? I've had multiple people ask me why Kathy still talks with the people I cut contact with, so I'll just copy-paste one of my replies here. Even though my sister was just as crushed about Jake's death as I was and was angry for a long time, she and her then boyfriend, future husband, hit a financial rough patch after graduating college, and were forced to move in with our parents. Due to unrelated drama at the time, they couldn't stay with me. So my sister stayed with them for several years, and over that time their relationship improved. And even though I wasn't thrilled at the time, I understood. She still doesn't really have a relationship with Pete, but is cordial if they meet. I don't blame her, because our parents did a lot for her, and daughters love their cousins, so I didn't want to put her in that kind of position of choosing. Now for the advice. Did you already ask Kathy's daughters if their cousins know the truth? Since it is very important for you, then maybe Kathy's daughters could help you figure it out, as they seem to be in a good relationship with them. They've told me that they haven't mentioned anything to them, but said it was clear that they were at least vaguely aware. Like they know we are estranged regarding our brother's death, but not sure if they have the details. Make it a prerequisite that they be told the truth about their parents for you to have any relationship with them. I think the situation needs to be handled with care. I don't think there's any harm in meeting them, but you do need to be clear with them that you have no intention of seeing or interacting with their father. From your earlier comment, it sounds like the kids are all adults, but since they're still living with their father, it might be best to hold off on the specifics of why you won't talk to their dad until they're a bit more independent. Your brother definitely sounds like the type that would blame you for turning his kids against him, and knowing the truth could make their lives more difficult while they're still under his roof. Those were my thoughts as well. I'm sure one of their first questions for me is going to be why their father and I don't speak, and given their living situation, I'm not sure if it would be good for them to know that information while still under his roof. If they ask, just tell them that you're not comfortable discussing it with them yet, and that when you are, you'll let them know. Don't have a relationship with those kids unless it's going to be based on honesty. Your older brother is, indeed, largely responsible for the needless death of your younger brother. I have no words for your parents. Your estranged brother's children played no role in your brother's death, so relationship with them to a point becomes possible. However, I don't know how you can have a relationship with them unless they know the truth. It's time for your older brother and your parents to own their dishonesty and dysfunction. I'm so sorry for your heartache, Hiropi. Last story is titled, My 19 male, half-sister 17 female, isn't happy my father won't sponsor her college. My half-sister is 2 years younger than me. She's a rising senior and will be entering college in fall 2022. My half-sister's parents are essentially broke. This is because my mother is very ill, and a lot of their expenses go towards her treatment. My half-sister's dad pays for all her medical bills, and mine does not. My mom left my dad while she was pregnant with me, and soon fell in love with half-sister's dad. While the timing is close, there was no cheating. My dad didn't pay for my mom because he didn't care about her anymore. I don't think it was wrong for that, and he got majority custody when she fell ill. My dad is rich, and he is paying for my education. My sister and dad are pretty close because he babysat her a lot. She asked him if he'd pay for her college, and he said no. She got really upset because she got into a decent school but cost a fair amount of money. The money wouldn't even dent my dad's bank, but he refused because he never saw her as his responsibility. Now my half-sister wants me to convince my dad to help her pay for college. What the hell is this post? If your ex who left you 20 years ago has another kid with someone else, you're not responsible for paying for them to go to college. At all. People are weird AF. More like some Americans are entitled AF. What did I just read? His responsibilities to his child, you, just like all parents. Your sister's parents are responsible for her. Sorry, someone had to say that. It's crazy how some of the comments think the dad should help. He's not an ATM. Exactly. He's nice to her, which is good enough considering what her mom did. It sucks, she'll have to work through to get uni, but if she chooses an in-state school, it won't be that bad, honestly. It's one thing to help out your ex and make sure your child has a good relationship with her half-siblings. It's quite another to pay for a child's college education that isn't yours. Your half-sister is not being realistic. Even though it would not make a dent in your dad's financial situation, he's not her dad. If her parents can't afford to send her to college, there are grants, scholarships, and loans. She needs to talk to her school counselor and see what kind of help she can get.
Update. Am I the a-hole for changing my mind about my wife being a stay-at-home mom because she changed the terms? Original post. I, 35 male, have been with my wife Allie, 37 female, for 2 years, married for 1, and we are expecting our first child together in a few months. I also have 2 children, 8 male and 6 female, from a previous relationship with Alex, 32 female, and we have 50-50 custody. However, Alex travels a lot for work, so we have the kids more than that most of the time, and we get child support from her. Before we got married, Allie and I spoke extensively about what we wanted, and she was adamant about being a stay-at-home mom. I was upfront with her that I was fine with that, we'd be able to afford it, but she would need to be a stay-at-home mom for all of the kids to make it work. She agreed happily. So, as you can probably predict, she sat me down the other day and told me that she wants, at minimum, her first year as a mom to only be a stay-at-home mom to our shared baby. She said after that, she can help out more with the other kids, but wants to protect her first-time motherhood, and said it's her #1 boundary. I told her that would no longer work. I couldn't support a family of 5 on just my salary without help with all of the kids. She said I needed to figure it out and respect her boundaries, but this simply won't be possible. We have family to help for sure, but she's saying she doesn't want to be responsible for the older kids at all for the first year. Also, we want at least 1 more child, and I'm now worried she'll try to extend the year with another baby. She's incredibly hurt and angry, but I don't think it would even be possible to respect her boundaries. So would I be the a-hole for reneging on my promise to let her be a stay-at-home mom? Quick edit. My ex-wife will be keeping the kids for 2 weeks after the birth, and has been able to assure me she won't travel during that first month unless emergencies come up. I am also paying the person I currently have, who picks up, watches, and drops off the kids before and after school, an additional 4 weeks. After that, Alex already has them for 6 full weeks, so Allie will have 6 full weeks off from any older kid duties. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Aren't the older two in school? So realistically, she would have the entire school day with just her and the baby. She's being ridiculous. She can either enjoy several hours each day alone with her kid and parent her stepchildren after school as agreed, or she can put her baby in daycare and miss out on all those hours while she gets a job. Yes, but they'd need to be taken to and picked up from school or taken to their activities while I'm at work. I currently pay somebody to do this, but with a new baby and without her salary, I won't be able to. She needs to see the math and know that what she wants is not possible. She also needs a dictionary because that's not a boundary. It's a demand. A boundary is not something that can dictate anyone else's behavior. Yes, I have shown her the numbers, but she wants me to make it work. How? She's being unreasonable and at the expense of your older children. I'm angry for you. Not the a-hole. Your kids are in school most of the day Monday through Friday, I'd assume. That gives her 9 months to have the days with her baby, and in the evenings and weekends she'll have your help. But I'm more concerned about the dynamic she's setting up. Her baby versus your kids. Your children will feel this dynamic very deeply, if they don't already. She will make them feel like outsiders in their own home. She will make them feel like this baby isn't really their sibling. This has disaster written all over it, and you need to shut this down immediately. You're headed for another divorce, I'm afraid. Her mask has slipped. I agree, and it's so far out of left field. She loves the kids and they love her. She always loves doing things with them and planning activities. I wouldn't have married her if she didn't like them. Now for the update. One quick thing. I've known Allie since freshman year biology. We never dated until a few years ago, but we've always remained friends. I have known her for a long time, and this behavior is also new. She loved being a bonus mom, would be excited for the kids to come over for extra time, and would even ask me to ask my ex if she could have them randomly if she wanted to take a day off and go swimming or to the zoo or something. I've asked her to talk to her doctor about this, and she's yelled at me about it. I have no clue what to do. I talked to Allie and laid everything out. I told her that her demands were out of line and incredibly entitled, and that if she insisted on keeping them, I was no longer comfortable with her quitting her job and would not support it. Further, 2 weeks without my kids was ridiculous. So I told her that if she went into labor during our custody time, my parents would have the older kids when we were in the hospital. But I am no longer comfortable sending my kids away to their moms for 2 weeks. Other families don't normally do that, and I would not either. But for the first 2 months after we have the baby, I would keep paying the nanny and take care of the older kids' needs, which is longer than I had originally agreed. Honestly, it was also more than she'd even originally agreed to, so I thought it was a fair compromise. She lost her mind and flipped out at me, told me that I wasn't respecting her first-time motherhood. WTF. And that she shouldn't have to care for kids I didn't give birth to for the first year of her baby's life. I was honestly over it at this point and done arguing. I told her she needed to check herself and that none of this was new or a surprise. If she didn't want to do it, she shouldn't have agreed to it, and her being a stay-at-home mom was off the table. To be clear, I know I could make it work with just my salary, but it would mean taking the funds I would allocate towards her fun money for things like shopping, self-care, etc. And I'm not comfortable telling an adult dependent on me financially that she couldn't have a choice for fun money. I showed her the budget, which backfired because she said that I didn't need to defund her fun money and gave me a few solutions, which were take the older kids out of private school and ask my ex to give us that money in child support instead. Stop putting money into my older kids' college fund. Sell my boat. Those were her solutions, none of which had her sacrificing anything, only me and or my kids. And the first one was so unreasonable. I could only imagine how that conversation with my ex would go. She'd laugh me out of the country, LOL. I told Allie all of that was unreasonable and a non-starter, and honestly, it just made me see where her priorities are. So yeah, I told her that if she couldn't agree to common sense compromises, I could no longer trust her to be a stay-at-home mom to our older kids. There was zero daylight in how much I cared about my older kids versus our shared baby, and I had to protect them both equally. The fact that she thought it was reasonable to stop saving for my older kids' college while still giving her money for Botox and highlights showed me where her priorities would lie if she no longer brought in income. I said I was no longer comfortable with her quitting her job, and that since my work has not free but heavily reduced daycare on site, that would be the best option for our family after her FMLA leave. She doesn't get paid maternity leave, just unpaid up to 3 months, which will be fine. She's devastated and being cold towards me, but surprisingly not my kids, which is good. I don't want to kill her dreams of being a stay-at-home mom, but I can't work with someone who refuses to be reasonable. We discussed it with our therapist last week, who wasn't exactly on my side obviously, but was trying to point out the unfairness, and she just keeps saying she needs me to prioritize her needs and boundaries. The therapist even tried explaining that these are not boundaries, but she's not listening. So in summary, I tried reasoning with my wife. She tried convincing me to stop saving for college for the older kids to pay for their nanny, so she could only be a stay-at-home mom to our shared baby. And I told her I no longer thought it would work for her to be a stay-at-home mom. She's devastated, but we're working it out with our therapist, and I'm hoping this is all just hormones. Please go see a lawyer and figure out how to protect yourself, and maybe move other college funds into a trust so they can't be touched, etc. She is going to stay home with the baby no matter what, and will start rejecting your bio kids when she doesn't get her way. My kids' college and savings are in trusts. We had a prenup as well, so I'm not too worried about that. I'd divorce her before she can reasonably argue in court that you have to pay inflated child support and alimony. Please check in with your older children regularly to ensure that her behavior towards them has not changed when you are not present. That's the thing, she's still wonderful to them. They see a therapist as well, just monthly, since the divorce we wanted to make sure they were okay. And it's like, when they're not around, she's a different person. It's hard to explain how it's such a reversal to people who don't know her, but she was so lovely with them until she got pregnant. Hormones don't excuse this kind of behavior. Have her checked for early onset of PPA or PPD, but don't excuse her selfish words as fleeting due to her pregnancy. She basically boiled it down to wanting you to choose her or your kids, then freaked out when you chose your kids. That is something that shouldn't be forgiven lightly. Her first choice at compromise is to sabotage your kids' educations. At this point, it sounds like you've got yourself a gold digger having a tantrum because she feels entitled to more, no matter who suffers for her greed. She is only 4 months pregnant, so I doubt it's PPD. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being willing to end my marriage because I refuse to uproot my kids from their life to follow my stepkids? My wife and I have been together for 4 years, married for almost 2. We both have kids. My daughter is 11 and my son is 9. We lost their mom when they were younger. My wife had been divorced for many years and shared custody of her 15 and 16-year-olds with her ex, until a few months ago when he was granted permission to move to another state with their kids because their kids wanted to go with their dad. My wife doesn't want to be away from her kids for long periods of time, and she has told me she's moving. She feels like she needs to be near her kids. I support this, but I won't move my kids away from family, friends, and stability to do this. My kids don't want to move either. They heard my wife mention it several weeks ago, and they told me they don't want to leave. They'd miss everyone too much. I already know the life my kids have here is what they need and where they thrive. I explained this to my wife, and she was defeated. She told me we can't make a marriage work if I'm here and she's there, and I said I agree and told her I believe the best way forward would be to divorce. She was upset by this, of course, and we talked and I comforted her, and she asked me if there was anything she could say or do to make me reconsider. I told her I won't move my children, and I would never ask her to be apart from her kids for months at a time. I said we're both committed to the best interests of our individual children, and that means doing what's right for them, even if it's not right for us as a couple. She asked for us to talk it out some more, and we have. We've talked about it extensively, but all the while she has been making arrangements for a place where her ex and kids now live and a new job. I think she believed I would change my mind the more we discussed everything, but I have not, and now she's angry that I would rather our marriage end than move so we can all be together as a family. But I know this is not what's best for my kids. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You're putting your kids' stability first, and that's exactly what a parent should do. It sucks for your marriage, but forcing them to move away from their entire support system would be unfair. Your wife is doing what she feels she has to for her kids, and you're doing the same for yours. It's heartbreaking, but sometimes love isn't enough when kids are involved. Maybe when your kids are grown and off to college, then you might revisit the living arrangements. But for now, you are doing what's best for your kids. I applaud you for doing what is best for them. Not the a-hole. You're putting your children first, as you should. Why is she getting angry at you? While she did the right thing by putting her children first, she's the one that broke the family dynamic. She's the one who had already put the wheels in motion to move. She just thought you'd follow after her and is angry because you didn't bow to her demands. That's not thinking as a family. I think she's angry that I'm sticking to what we both always said when we started our relationship. Just like she's putting her kids first, I'm doing the same, and I think the reality of that is frustrating her, when I in theory have more flexibility than she does. But what matters most to me is, would it be good for my kids? And the answer is no. This move would not be good for them. Last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to divorce my wife for enabling my son to harass one of his classmates? I am 38 male, and my wife, 38 female, have been together for 18 years and married for 13. My wife has always been this sweet woman with a very strong sense of justice. She always expressed her disdain towards people who treated others like dirt. We had a son 16 who we raised to treat people with respect and align with our morals, and he had always been such a sweet kid. Well, that was until we found out he was downright tormenting this kid in his class for months. My son and a group of his friends were bullying this boy for coming from a low-income background and not having real parents. He was being raised by his grandmother. They took any of the very little money he had or was given, as well as any treasured items of his regardless of the expense. They physically harmed him when he didn't want to give them money or had no money to give. We found this out by getting a call from our son's school one day, and they called us in. They informed us of everything. I didn't want to believe it. My son, who I knew, would have never done this. Nevertheless, when I asked my son, he confessed to everything. He looked guilty, but he looked as guilty as you would be for accidentally stepping on someone's shoe. My wife also looked upset at him, but, once again, like it was something small. When we saw the boy who my son was hurting, he was covered in cuts and bruises, and I couldn't believe my son had done this to another boy. His grandmother also looked like she had been crying for hours. I felt horrible. My son got suspended for 3 weeks out of school, and charges will most likely be pressed. I genuinely don't know how to process this, or fathom what I've done to raise such a cruel kid. I immediately grounded him from everything, including devices, going outside without supervision, and did many other things. But I feel like it wasn't enough punishment for him. I'm nauseated by the thought of everything he's done, and I feel like he deserves more ramifications, but I don't know what else I could possibly do. My wife, however, seemed to immediately get over it. In fact, she told me I was too harsh. She just gave him a slap on the wrist and downplayed it like they were 5-year-olds at a playground who called each other stupid names but would easily get over it. This young boy my son and his friends tortured will probably have to deal with his trauma for years or even for life, and you're treating it like it's a silly altercation? She also told me something along the lines of, "Boys will be boys. You should know this. Boys roughhouse and get into conundrums playfully. Boys do not abuse other boys for their background or simply just for fun." I snapped and yelled at her, saying that her treating the situation like this was horrible and she needs to learn basic empathy. That poor boy had to endure the pain and couldn't get attention for his wounds while our son was getting affirmation for inflicting the pain on him. My wife snapped back and said I was overreacting. I told her she wouldn't be acting like this if it was our son in this situation. She just responded by calling me a list of derogatory names that I don't want to repeat. I feel like she's not the same person after this. Neither my son nor wife will talk to me unless I apologize to them, which is what my wife said. I don't know what I could possibly apologize for. I don't know why she's making me apologize to them when she's made no effort to have our son apologize to the boy he's been hurting for months. My wife has also been very passive-aggressive, and yesterday she left to stay at a friend's house with our son. My son has also just not been talking to me at all, convinced he was in the right. I want to divorce her. I'm disgusted by her actions of allowing this indirectly, and I'm even more repulsed by my son for doing this to another human being. Maybe I am overreacting or being an irrational a-hole. Maybe a divorce is too harsh, but I'll never be able to see her as the same person after this. I don't want to be with someone who treats abuse like it's just a small shenanigan, especially when she's been so adamant on having people like my son get a punishment twice as painful as the victim endured. I don't know what to do with my son. I don't know what to do with myself. Am I the a-hole? Is it possible I can just talk this through with them and get over it? Or am I just being irrational for wanting divorce? Not the a-hole. However, you married one, and she's raising an even bigger one. My heart hurts for that poor child and his grandmother. Jesus, your wife should never have procreated. Her genes are grade A a-holes. These things also don't just happen out of nowhere. I'd wager OP has subconsciously ignored a lot. This isn't to blame OP, but more if he looks back, he might find answers that'll help him move forward. I'd also bet money that it's a class thing. The son and the mother look down on the boy and his grandmother. So it's okay because they're lower class, so they're not real people. I think this has been going on for a prolonged period of time, and wife has known about it, and now it's escalated to this.